ready for the Bob Graham Experience.
Hey, you probably struggle at least once in a while or in the past or even now with selling. Most of us do. It's not natural. It feels sometimes, icky is the way I like to think of it. And the guy I'm going to talk to today, Brendan McAdams, really has helped me understand selling in a different way. He's really helped me improve my sales. He's helped me better understand how to work with people, how to engage with people so that they actually want to buy what I'm offering. And this interview, he covers a lot of what he does to make that work. So I'm looking forward to our discussion. I think you should too. And let me warn you, you might want to grab a pad, a paper, and a pencil, and you might want to get ready to reverse things a little bit and play it a second time. It's that good. So here comes my interview with Brendan McAdams of Kinetics. Enjoy. Brendan, great to have you here. You have been a really good colleague. You've been we've done podcasts together. I've helped you with a book. We've commiserated about love, life, politics, the media, you name it. So I'm real excited because one of the things I think is really a problem for a lot of small business owners, founders, anyone in business is sales.
Yeah.
It's kind of icky to them a lot. Yeah. That was the word someone used when I told them I was interviewing you today. It's like, oh, you're going to talk about the icky part of business.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm hoping you're going to be able to shed some light on that icky part of business, give us some really good hints about how to be better at sales, and hopefully encourage us so much so that we actually buy one of your books. I know you got several books in play right now. So first things first, walk us through how you got to this place where you are the guy that can help founders, owners, small business people more effectively sell. Are you one of these guys that actually likes to do sales?
I actually do, yeah. But I understand why people oftentimes don't, because there's a certain stigma to it, and there's a lot of kind of bad history in sales and kind of cliche sort of Glengarry, Glen Ross sort of stuff. Yep. And so I try and spend a lot of time kind of counteracting that, and I to great effect. But it is a lot of it is psychological, the kind of limitations that you place on you, and in the right circumstances, sales is actually a great deal of fun if you do it right. And I do say at one point in my book is if you're not enjoying it, you're not doing it right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you get to this place where you can write a book about sales and you can help people with sales? Give us your trajectory.
So I've been in this kind of sales world for a long time. Even as a kid, I did stuff in that space, and so I have a lot of.
What did you sell as a kid, Brendan? Gumballs or candy bars? Or no,
I made one of the first things I did was mail order. I did a orthopedic belt buckle, like the orthopedic symbol, in brass, and I had a whole bunch of them made, and I would sell them through the Journal of Bone and Joint Surgery magazine, and mail order, and I'd get these checks.
Are you serious?
Yeah, serious. Yeah, when I was a kid, and my dad was an orthopod, so it was one of the most terrifying things. I used to write a check to the Journal of Bone and Joint Surgery for like $750, which was just for me at the time.
How old were you at this point?
I was in junior high school. So I was probably
12, 13,
14 years old kind of thing. 14,
and you had a checking account at that time.
Yeah, I went in and got a checking account with my dad, took me in, got a checking account. And I would run these ads, and then checks, like I'd run an ad, and then a few days later checks would come in. And I'd get checks, and I'd mail out bell buckles, and I did that for I did that for 2 or 3 years and made money, and I welded a whole bunch of barbecue pits. This is when I lived out in California, and I'd made like a whole bunch of barbecue pits, and then I'd sell them, and so I did that, and then I got into kind of more formal sales, and also my degree is in English. Right. And which is basically inapplicable to any job. You can't, I don't know although, it's like you don't have any sort of a skill per se, but you do have a skill, and that is communication. And what I kind of landed on was The only thing I was really qualified to do at the time when I graduated from college was basically sell, because you could communicate, write a letter, et cetera. And so I sort of ended up back in sales. Yeah. And so then it just kind of kept going. And, other people got engineering degrees, or they went on to med school or whatever. And I didn't do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you focus primarily on healthcare sales
Now,
right?
Yeah.
Now,
for the last
but
year.
In the past, you've worked in other phases of it.
Yeah.
And so what were your thoughts of sales? I mean, it sounds like you ended up doing this sales through mail order. And then when was the first job where you actually had to go out and talk to people about a product or service?
Yeah. Well, I did the census one year in college, right, to make money. So that was going out and meeting people on a regular basis. I don't know if I ever had I don't really ever have had a door-to-door kind of sales.
Okay.
So I had a kind of a more corporate sort of thing where you're selling to people. And so I got a job after college where I ended up working, selling to AT&T. It was my first real big job. I got a lucky break, right?
Okay.
And I interviewed for a job. They got hired. It was basically learn on the job training sort of thing. And I was selling to AT&T, Bell Labs. And what I did was I learned as much as I could, and then I just got back then you could get a directory of all the people inside of Bell Labs, and I would call them. And I would just call and see if I could get appointments. And I guess
so you were doing cold calling.
Cold calling. Oh, literally cold calling.
Which to most people listening to this or watching this probably is one of the scariest two words you can come up with.
It is. And there are people, and the thing is you have to get your mindset. So much of it is your mindset, right? This is one of the things you and I've talked about this. And this is one of the important things about sales. And this is where I like to start with a new customer, or, when I'm consulting with someone, is getting them to understand that they have to think about how they think about sales.
Okay.
And it's a little meta, but the point is that you have to be in the right frame of mind to do anything. And that's especially true when you're selling to people, and you have to think about how should you be thinking about what you're doing. Right. And what I found is that over time, as I made a bunch of these phone calls, I got to know people, and I got to learn more about what works and what didn't. And also what it really taught me was what I was good at.
Okay.
And what I needed to get good at, what I wasn't good at, and what I was good at, and how to address one and the other. Right. And so at some level, sales is repetition. It's touches. Right. It's getting out there and doing something over and over again. And this is, not to break to wear people down with the whole 10,000 hours thing, but there's a certain amount of practice and touches and times in front of a customer that allow you to get better. Right. And so that job in particular gave me lots of opportunity to do that.
Okay. Now you talked about coaching people. Do you want to coach me for a moment on some cold calling stuff?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So here's what I don't like about cold calling. We didn't plan this. This is not scripted. This is literally in the moment.
Right.
I always feel like I'm going to bother someone.
Yeah.
I feel like they're going to hate me.
Yeah.
And I'm an approval seeker in general.
Yeah.
So the fact that someone might hang up on me, or they might hate me, or they might say, you know what you're selling me is really stupid. How could you possibly think I need that?
Yep.
Those thoughts are what prevail in my mind as I pick up my list of calls to make.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know I bring that into it. So what would you say to me if that's my situation, which is in fact my situation?
Yeah. Right. Well, the first thing is you have to understand and believe and not lie to yourself that you're really trying to help someone out. If you're really going and approaching them and saying, I can help you, or I have a way to help you, I have something that I think that'll be of interest to you, and you firmly believe that, and it's true, then that's the first thing. And what I think I oftentimes try and explain to customers, and when I'm coaching a client, I want to spend time. What I want them to do is get out of the mode of trying to sell someone something, and get into the mode of, I'm trying to figure out if there's a fit.
Okay.
Do what you need and what I have match up? And if so, how? And how much they match up? And what's the benefit that you get out of that match? And so if you think about it very coldly, like in that way, hey, I'm calling you, then and I think I have something that may be of help to you based on what I know about you and or your situation or the kind of business you're in or whatever. And if you go into it, first of all, with that sort of attitude, it has a tendency to change the way you present yourself. It's much more consultative, conciliatory. It's much less it's not manipulative, right? So that's one of the first things. The second thing is you really have to figure out a way to craft your message so that it's clear to the person answering the phone or that you're talking to recognizes that you're thinking about things from their perspective.
Right off the bat, you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So not getting on the phone and going, hi, I'm Bob Graham. I want to help you write a lead generation book.
Yeah. Nobody cares, right? About that. And by the way, that is another thing. Basically, nobody cares about you, right? And I don't mean that in a cavalier way. I just mean that people are focused on their own objectives, their own problems and so forth. And so as much as you can make it about them, make it understand that you're recognizing what their issues are and what you're trying to do is just see if there's a fit. I think that's critically important. And I think that does come across. Some people are better at it than others in terms of being genuine. But I think the more that you can put yourself in your prospective customer's shoes in a way that's really specific and meaningful and is I think most effective. So those are the things that I would say right off the bat. Like, how do you deliver? Like, hey, one of the questions people will often say is a bad thing as a sales is am I catching a good time? Right. They say, oh, don't do that because that gives them
the ability to say, no, you're not.
No, it's not. And I happen to disagree with that. Now how you deliver it and so forth, finesse is a big part of all this. But the idea of saying, listen, I think I might have something for you. I don't know if there's a good time or not. I had this happen today. I was texting an old customer of mine from years ago, and I said, hey, I want to try and get back to you. And by the way, this works in a text as well. Mm-hmm. And that is, would love to chat. Here's why. And she sort of put me off, and I sort of cajoled her a little bit by saying, I just think there may be a fit, and then here's why. And ultimately, she said, okay, I'll make time for you. And I think some of it's just how you deliver that and the like. But the idea is it really is about them. Okay. So if you lead with your product, that's usually a bad thing, right? If you can lead with, if I understand what you do, XYZ, you probably have a problem with this. And the reason I know this is I just worked with someone who does the same sort of thing. And I want to know if, I may be catching a bad time, but I'd love to know if there's interest in a fit, like if what I offer, which is ABC, might be able to help you. Mm-hmm. And, this is, if it's not, I understand. But if you're looking to grow your business, or if you're looking to do this sort of thing, or you're tackling this sort of problem, I've got some customers that I've done this for. And and there may be, if there's overlap, if there's a fit, I'd love to chat with you about it.
Now, I had one of the people I talked to, I was at a networking event a couple weeks ago, and a small business owner said to me, we were talking about sales, and he said, here's the thing. I don't want to have them talk until I explain to them exactly everything I can do for them.
Oh, I think that's a disaster.
Okay, walk me through that logic because
Oh,
I was taken aback.
yeah.
And then two other people heard him say that and they said, that's exactly how I feel.
No, I can't imagine that. I would not listen. I can't wait to get out of that conversation.
Sounds like 1950s sales, right?
Yeah, yeah. So,
Call and tell them what you want. Hi, I'm Bob and I've got widgets and you're going to love my widgets and we can have widgets delivered. How many would you like?
right. What is it most people want to do? Most people want to talk. They don't want to listen, right?
Most salespeople, you mean?
No, I mean people. People would
Okay.
rather tell you what
Oh, in general, people,
right.
yes.
They want to feel like they're interesting. They want to feel like they're being listened to. And if you can get someone to talk and explain what their circumstances are, and you can listen intently, this is a fundamental skill: is the ability to listen, to not interrupt, to be fully engaged, and to not try and pitch. Because what people really want to know is they want to feel like they've been heard, and they want to feel like they've been understood. And then if you can say things like, and by the way, you wouldn't even start selling right away. You would say, oh, you just mentioned this. Could you tell me more? Or that's fascinating. Why is that such a problem? What's the cost of that?
Or what have you tried in the past you must have spent some time on this. What have you tried?
Right. And the other thing is if you can make people feel, and I mean this in a genuine way, make them feel like you understand that they're knowledgeable. They know what they know what they're doing. Right. I'm doing some work right now with a health tech company. And one of the things I lead with is you've got a problem that's endemic in the industry. And unfortunately, from where you are, it's really hard to solve. I mean, for you, because you're at a disadvantage. You're one company trying to solve it for this ocean of and what we try and do is what we as a company do is aggregate all of you, and by doing so, we make the problem much more manageable. And so what it does is it implies a level of empathy that, hey, listen, you're doing a good job. It's just you've got both hands tied behind you.
The deck stacked against you.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And so the minute I do that, they say to themselves, oh, this guy gets it. Right? He understands the problem. And he understands my problem. And that, I think, those sorts of things, and if you can figure that stuff out as you have the conversation with someone, especially in the first 10, 20, 30 seconds, if you can get that level of, if you can convey that kind of level of genuine concern and understanding, then I think it makes the conversation, that it disarms them. Because first of all, you're not talking to them like everybody else does, like every other salesperson that's on the phone just dialing, right? You're taking a different approach. That's unique in and of itself. That's fascinating to people. Oh, I may have to sit on this phone call a little longer because he's being polite and he's being understanding. So
it sounds like he actually cares.
He cares, and he's also different. This is worth listening to, right? Whereas someone else that barges in, I don't have any qualms about hanging up on someone that just starts in and tells me why they need a new website.
Or makes assumptions.
Right.
Oh, Brendan, you're a small business owner. I'm sure you have trouble with your lighting.
Right. Exactly.
Like, well, I'm not a brick and mortar store.
Yeah. Right.
I don't have lights.
Right.
You didn't do your homework really well.
Yeah.
And do you think part of this is that we've been so exposed to content on social media, on TV ads, at the beginning of movies, on the radio, on Spotify, Pandora, that we've been so desensitized or become so sensitive, really, to advertising and marketing that if you hop on a phone call with someone or if you're at a networking event with someone, you start into the I can solve your problem before you know what my problem is.
Yeah.
Don't you think that's when the people just get turned off?
I think my guess is that, in my experience, I think that the timing between the first thing you say to someone in a cold call situation and the time that they make a decision on what to do next, I think of that has shrunk over time. because we all have less time, less attention span. There are more things coming at us all the time. We also have become better and better at filtering what's meaningful, what's not. And so it is really incumbent upon you to get that message across very quickly in a way that is receptive, or that's compelling to them, and that's something that they can absorb. And so that is difficult. Those few seconds, the first 20 seconds, whatever it is, that's really tough. I think the things, and some of that goes back to, you just got to practice, right? But combine that with the fact that you've got to have the right mental attitude. Hey, I'm here to try to help and see if I can help you. I don't understand exactly what you do, but I have an idea. And so if you tell me a little bit more about whether or not there's a fit, I can tell you whether or not I can help you. And if you have that sort of lack of hubris, if you will, hey, you're the expert, I'm not. I have this. I may be able to help you. Tell me more, kind of thing. And then they get a chance to educate you. And who doesn't like to be in the position of like being smarter than somebody else? And if in that situation, with that problem that they're dealing with, if they are dealing with that problem, then they are smarter than you because they're living it. Right?
I'd love your take on something I've discovered in the last 6 months, and I think you actually helped me get here indirectly, which is the less I talk in a situation with someone, and the more they talk and the more they try to figure out how I can solve their problem.
Absolutely.
The more likely it is that I get the opportunity to solve their problem.
Yeah.
It's almost like they go, well, hey, so you were talking about this, but have you ever done this thing?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I do that thing, but I didn't mention it because I didn't know that's what you wanted. But let me talk about that thing. And suddenly that thing that to me is a tiny part of what I do becomes a huge thing to them, that's the problem they want to solve. And then it opens the door to other opportunities.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think, like I said earlier on, people like to talk. They want to tell you, they want to be understood. Everyone ultimately wants to be understood. They want to feel like they're smart. They want to feel like their position, their opinion, or or circumstances matter. All those things, which are real, right? And so, if you're the kind of person that can engage in a way that encourages that, you develop that sense of trust. Now, I don't want to make that sound like that's a manipulative thing, because if it's done right and it's genuine, then it shouldn't be. It's this is another kind of little trick that I think is really important, and that is when you go into a sales situation and you're just as happy if it's a no as a yes, then you're ahead of the game. And
you've said that to me several times. I know it's in your book. You're going to have to break that down, because I can tell you a lot of people just heard that and they're going, Brendan, that makes no sense at all. I hate hearing the word no, because that means I wasted time.
No. And I think that the minute you can kind of get around that and say, oh, not a fit. And because for a number of reasons. One is all of a sudden it takes the pressure off of you. First of all, I don't care how this turns out. I just want to have a conversation. I want to see if it's helpful. If it's not, that's a win, right? Because it's going to help somebody, and if it's not this person, then it's the next one or the next one. And it takes the pressure off you to close somebody, right? That's the first thing. So that's a big, that really takes, that makes it much easier for you to do your job. The second thing that happens is the minute you adopt that sort of attitude, it's inevitable that the customer will pick up on that. Right. And as soon as you're in a situation where you're not trying to, manipulate them into a solution, A, again, that's rare. And B, it frees them to be much more liberal with what they share and much more generous with what they share. And I think what most people, not always, but most people are looking for a solution. They're not looking for the perfect solution. They're looking for a solution, and ideally with someone they feel like they can deal with that without a lot of headaches. And I would much rather have a B solution with somebody who's pleasant to be with than something that's an A solution with someone who's a pain in the ass. That's how I am. I think a lot of people are that way. They're also, I think they want to get the problem solved. And if you can solve the problem and you can prove to them in some way that you can solve it, I don't think they shop as much as people sometimes think. I don't think people are as price sensitive as is often made out.
Well,
so
I think
things, yeah, you go ahead.
I was going to say one of the other things that really seems to come to mind for me is often when I'm talking to people about their problem,
yeah,
they recognize in their mind that they're the only person in the world who has their problem.
Right.
And often when I'm talking to them, I'm giving voice to their problem in a way they can't do on their own. It's like, like when you said, hey, the system really doesn't work in your favor because of all these things.
Right.
They probably know it on some level.
Yeah.
But they've never been able to put those words in their head and say them out loud. So suddenly you've basically said, hey, this is what you've been cogitating on for the last 3 years.
Right.
There it is. And I think that's what I find. And that's where the language becomes so valuable in listening to people and going through the repetitions to learn their language and learn how they think about things. I know you talk about that a lot in your book and in a lot of your sales training. So walk us through that language aspect a little bit.
Well, I think the first thing to kind of follow up on that last comment about no and so forth, and that is there's a chapter in my sales book called "Killing the Deal." Right.
This is in the Sales Craft book.
Sales Craft, yeah. And in that, and what I basically do is if you're talking to a customer at various points along the way, there may be one or another point where you're actively trying to. You're not trying to sabotage your deal, but you're looking for things that would cause it not to happen. And and I call that killing the deal. And and that is, you want to be in a situation where you can go to the customer and you can feel confident. This goes back to a no is as good as a yes. And that is that you want to be able to say to the customer, hey, here's where so I think I understand things. Here's where I think this falls apart. Or here's how. This is the problem that I see us having a challenge overcome.
So you're telling me your budget is X.
Yeah.
And my price is 10,000 more than X.
Yeah.
Would you be open to that? If this were the right solution, would you pay X plus 10,000?
Or you don't ask, you just say, here's the problem. Here in that example, right now it looks like we can solve this sort of thing with blah, blah, blah. One of the challenges is our pricing is this. And that may be an obstacle we can't, I don't know if we can overcome that. But
you would just say it that way. You wouldn't just sort of cross your fingers and not say a word about that until the very end. And then when they're ready to sign and you go, oh, by the way, we're $10,000 more than your price.
Oh, you want to say, hey, here's a problem. One of the classic problems is, in IT space or in the technology space is, hey, here's the implementation process we're going to go through, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to need to talk to so-and-so at this point, right? Or we're going to need to talk to so-and-so at this point, CEO, CIO, whomever.
CTO, whatever, right.
Whoever. And then they say, and I say, that's a critical step in this because we can't get this deal done without that. And then they say, no, I can't do that. And you say, well, all right, well then then there's no point moving forward because we need to be able to explain this to them because we're going to do these sorts of things and these steps are in the place and we're going to need this file or whatever and we need somebody can, and then then you have to be prepared to say, we can't move forward if we can't get this step done. And the reason for that then what that forces the customer, that's basically what you're doing is you're qualifying your deal. And you're qualifying your deal early before you waste a ton of time on someone who's going to drag their feet. They can't get you in front of the CIO or whoever it happens to be. They can't get you a certain file for whatever reason. And you will have wasted a whole bunch of time. And instead, you're saying, these are the things that we need. Like, here are the things we're going to deliver. But here are the things that we're going to need in order to do that. And if that person or the people that you're dealing with can't resolve that, then you know that you don't have a qualified deal, for example. And this And
so
then
that's really part of the qualification process, is
it's
what
part
you're
of the
saying.
qualification process. But also, what it does is it lets the customer know that you're serious, and you also have a certain set of standards, if you will, or requirements, and you have to be prepared to walk away from the deal. Listen, we can help you, but this is just something I can't get around. And you say it like that. You don't say it like this is something that we can't do this without these things or this thing. And then what the customer has to decide, oh, let's fix this, or I can't get it done. And then you may say, well, who do we need to talk to in order to get this done? And maybe they can get you to that person, or they can get you to that, and that person can get that file or whatever. But the point is, you have to be prepared to jeopardize the health of the deal. Because if you're not prepared to do that, you have jeopardized the health of the deal, because you've not uncovered the things that are going to cause the deal to go sideways, and you will have wasted a whole bunch of time in the meantime.
Now, someone's probably listening to this, Brendan, and going, hey, that's easy for you to say, but you don't realize how hard it is for me to get a customer. And you're basically saying, eliminate all these people. And yeah, maybe that $10,000 is an issue, but if I sell them enough, they'll find the $10,000. Or in your example, if I convince them of why it's so important to work with me, they'll let me talk to the CEO. And what you're saying is the opposite.
Down the road, you're basically doing that hopey changey thing, as Sarah Palin would say, right? You're hoping, right? Yes. Right? And
wow, Sarah Palin reference, folks. Didn't see that one coming.
Well, I am older, so here's the thing, though, is at some level you sort of you have to try it, right? If you try it and if it doesn't work, then call me up, right? And then yell at me, and then we'll discuss it, right?
Okay.
But until
you're not kidding about that, right?
Call me up, let me know.
Yeah, Brendan's incredibly accessible, and he would love to have the discussion. I can tell you, Brendan likes to be challenged on his ideas.
Here's the thing: it's like the minute you do it, and it's you have to write it out, though. You have to say, this is just the way we work. What it's conveying is a sense of seriousness, a sense of professionalism. Like, hey, this is what you're good at. This is what I'm good at. We've done this a bunch. These are the circumstances. This is what works. I'm telling you what works, right? And this is what we need to do. And I can't move forward if you can't do this thing. And that puts them in a position where they have to make a decision. And if you can sit back and say, like, how do we solve it? And you say, how do we solve it? Can we solve this? Or is this, and if it's insurmountable, I understand. If you can't do it, right? And you might suggest things like, can we talk to your boss, who maybe they can do it or whatever. But if, ultimately you have to hang tough. And what happens is, and you're just going to have to trust me, is like you become immediately a better salesperson. It just happens. But you can't do it. You can't get there if you don't trust yourself and your product or your solution and understanding the process. And the thing is, you're really good, whomever the salesperson is, you're probably very good at understanding the things that need to happen. And so you're kind of almost discounting your own knowledge and your own expertise if you don't stand tough on some of this stuff.
Okay, I'm going to shift gears totally on you. Sure. I know you work with a lot of founders, people inventing things, creating things for the first time, haven't had any sales whatsoever.
Yeah.
So what are 2 or 3 things that you can suggest to that person who's got a new product, new service, they've had no sales at all, they're scared to death to go out and sell it, if you will, or, and I've seen this a number of times when I taught college, they expect that because it's so amazing, once they release it into the world and say, my door is open, the world's going to come running to them because they have the solution for everyone and everything.
Yeah. And I ran an accelerator I've taught a bunch of classes for early stage startups, and I work with a lot of like early stage startups and like tech companies and so forth, both very early and then more mature. And with the early ones in particular, there is just this incredible fear of talking to someone until you have a product. And I would argue that, so the first thing I would do is, you get your mindset stuff taken care of, right? You're in the right mindset. The thing I would do is I would tell them that in 95% of the cases, 99% of the cases, your idea is not. So
wait, your idea is not that good in 95% of the cases?
I didn't say good. It's not that unique. It's not
not that unique. Okay, I'm sorry.
It's not that important that you be secretive about it, right? Now, if you've got some...
You mean I shouldn't get everyone that I talk to about it with an NDA and all that, non-disclosure agreement?
I don't think NDAs are worth... I'm not an attorney. I am not an attorney, but I don't...
Nor am I, but I agree with you. They're not worth much.
Yeah, they're not worth much. So what I would say is, the minute you have an idea, and you're a founder or you're an early stage entrepreneur or whatever, I would talk to as many people as I could about it. As many people, especially people that you think...
But they're going to steal my idea, Brendan.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. And right. And the reason is that it's not the idea that matters. It's the execution. Now, if you got a good idea, then what you got to do is get to work on it. Move quickly, right? Because, time is your enemy, really. But I would have as many conversations with as many people as I could. And one of the questions I'd make sure of is, a number of questions along this line is, what's wrong with this? What am I doing wrong?
So you advocate the minimum viable product idea. Get something, even if it's on a sheet of paper and sketching it out with flow charts before you build it.
Yeah, you should draw it out first, and then you should make it and show people and explain it. You don't even have to draw it. First of all, you could just talk to people at a cocktail party or whatever. Hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And it's the right person or the right people. Like, this is what I'm doing. What are the things I should be thinking about? And then you go back and you make a version. You go back and you show them. Hey, I did these little screens. What do you think? And a couple of things happen there. One is the person that you talked to the first time goes, wow, they listened to me.
Right.
Oh, right. And then now you show them screens and they can say, now they're a little bit invested because it's a little bit their thing.
Right.
And you do that a bunch. And then you make PowerPoints when you get more of the errors out of the way. Right. And then everywhere along the way, two questions would be, what am I missing? Or what's wrong with this? What's wrong with this? Not what's right, because the things that are right, you will pick up on those without even asking us. Oh, this is cool. I like this. Oh, that works that way. So you don't have to ask him what you're not looking for happy talk. You're looking for what's not working. And what are the obstacles to this? Who do I need to, and if the more you talk to people about this, and the more I would be in front of a bunch of people as often as I can. I would have it, if you can build it on, at some point you build it on Figma and you have a version on your phone, if it's a phone app, and it's screens and you just show them, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Let them bounce through it, and see where, it's constant, what do they call it? User
iteration,
group.
right?
Yeah, in iterations and so forth. And you're not investing a ton of time on it, right?
The less final it is, the more they feel like they can jump into it.
Right. You're not investing a ton of resources. So you start nowadays, man, you can crank stuff up in no time. So the sooner, mock things up, paper, PowerPoint, whatever, and then maybe Figma, and then, for $1,000 you can get some engineer or some designer to craft an app that works on your phone.
So I don't need the logo, the website, the brochure, the sales strategy, the exact pricing, the mission statement, the about us. And all that. All that isn't necessary. I just need to have an idea and the ability to talk to people about it.
Yeah.
And when I talk to them, I really want them to tell me the things that are not ideal about it.
Who, by the way, You've seen this. Who else should I talk to? Who else
Right.
who else would be good to talk to? And then what this will also do, that the more people you talk to about it, the more you're going to figure out who your early adopters are.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Who are the people that just can't? And then, and as you have these conversations, what problem does this solve? Like, how much is this problem solving worth? And then you start to get an idea for like how important this thing is. You may find, here's the other thing you may find out. You may get 25 or 50 conversations into this and go, this is a dead end.
Right.
And the thing a lot of times people is they're so in love with their idea that they don't want to hear anything that causes them to jettison their idea. But the problem with that is what you're basically setting yourself up for is a long haul. Because if your thing is successful, it's probably a long haul. And if you go down that route and it's a dead end, you will have wasted a ton of time, enthusiasm.
Or it's harder to change later.
Right. It's harder to change later.
No, because sometimes I think one thing I see is with a lot of owners that I've talked to, the problem they think they're solving is unique to them.
Yeah.
And they extrapolate, well, if I have this problem, everyone who's a dentist has this problem.
Right.
Well, that may not be the case. And when you go out there, I've worked with several companies where I've been the one to just help them decide go or no go.
Yeah.
And in the cases where it's no go, it's very disappointing. Yeah. But then a couple of days later, they're like, Bob, now that I really think about it, this probably wasn't going to work. And I think the fear that people have when they're working in their basement or their garage trying to figure a solution out, and they come up with something, an invention or an idea, is they don't want people to say it doesn't work. Right. But what I always hearken to is the idea that most successful inventors tried 8 or 9 things before they got to the one that worked.
Well, here's the other thing. Here's the real gold in all that. And that is you start having a bunch of conversations with people and you're going to learn a ton of stuff. And what you may very well learn is after 2 or 3 conversations is people look at your thing, the thing that you've mocked up, and say, this is clever. And you'll hear this. This is clever, but what you really ought to do is this. And you're going to hear that. Then all of a sudden, you're going to hear that 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 times. This, I like what you're doing here, but what you really need to think about is take this and maybe point it over here and do this. Because this is a real problem. And then you say, really, what, like why? And then they tell you why, and this is how expensive it is, and this is what they're up against, and blah, blah, blah. And now you got something. Because then they say, well, if I built this, would you buy it? They go, heck yeah, because this cost me $100,000 a month, right? Or whatever.
Right.
And now you've got your customer, right? You've got a customer. And so what you can do is say, oh, listen, all right, I'm going to build it. I'll build it for you. And I build it. I talked to 3 other people that evidently and so what it really, the challenge is, can you have those conversations and be listening to what is really being told to you? And that's the challenge for a lot of people. They get myopically on this. I love this idea. What is it? Love your darlings. Right. And you end up loving the thing, but they're telling you, no, this is the thing, right? It was like, what's Slack? Slack was this one thing. And they luckily had the presence of mind to listen to people and they see, oh, they're really using it for this over here. And they move Slack, $1 billion company. Well,
so Brendan, I should probably give you props. In the last 6 to 8 months, you made a pretty radical suggestion about a shift in my business.
Yeah.
And I finally heard it from you.
Yeah.
How many times do you think you said it to me over the last 2, 3, 4 years?
Oh, man. I don't know. It's
at least 20.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
And it's funny, as you were saying that, you don't hear it until you hear it.
Right. Right.
And I remember the day it clicked for me about what I should be doing. And you made this case. And it's like, this is so simple. This is really easy. I'm working so hard. Yeah. And he's just like handed me the gold. And I finally heard it. And I remember saying to someone that night, I'm like, the crazy thing? I think Brendan's been saying this to me for at least 4, maybe 6 years.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the problem. We get so
Yeah.
We put blinders on. It's like, well, I've got to do this thing. I've got to do this thing.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, someone's telling you, or the world's telling you, no, it's this thing. Or I've seen it with products or services where it's like, I was talking to someone yesterday and they were like, okay, this is what they're going to do with my product.
Yeah.
And I said, really? What if they do this? He said, no, it's for this. And I said, there are a whole lot more people that want to do that.
Yeah.
And if they do that and you make $1 million, are you going to come back to me and be like, hey, Bob, I'm really annoyed that I made $1 million with that, not this?
Yeah. Right.
And I think that's one of the challenges we have. I think it's also a challenge with sales that we get so, at some point, we feel like we know the person and we know everything so well.
Right.
That we just tell people, hey, Brendan, this is what you should buy from me. You need my coaching because this. And you may not need that.
Yeah. Right.
So I want to make another radical shift here. For small business owners, can you give me 3 things that you think would critically improve their sales that they can figure out like in the next 3 days? Super simple stuff.
Oh.
Because I know your book, Salescraft, is chock full of them.
Yeah.
Because I helped you with it. I did some editing.
Yes,
and so I know what I found, and you don't know this, I don't think, but maybe I've told you, but as I was helping you with that book, I was learning a whole lot about sales.
Yeah.
So it's a great book. If you want a sales book that's easy to digest and really, really not hard to get through, Salescraft is the book. And I mean, most of the chapters are 2-3 pages, right?
Yeah. So that would, at the risk of sounding like I'm shilling for you, but I really do sort of believe this, and that is, I think if you're a business, you're a consultant, you've got a small business in a particular niche, and so whatever. I think the idea of writing a book about it in that space is invaluable. It was for me, and you helped a lot in terms of helping me kind of organize it and polish it and the voice and so forth. But the reasons are not as apparent as it's not selling books.
I'm listening to my customer here, folks. Go on.
So I think one of the big things that writing a book about your area of expertise. Now, this is not a novel. This is some business oriented or some nonfiction sort of book. Is that what it really does is it forces you to think about what you do in a structured way, in a comprehensive way. And I think that I think there's something about, because it is grueling. The fact that you help someone is a big deal, because it is doing it on your own. It's work. And it's funny because you think, oh, just sit down and write, but it's the editing and the structuring and getting the voice and all those little components, which you certainly help with a lot, actually. And so, but what
thank
it does,
you. It's really awkward for me, but thank you.
Well, what it does is it allows you to kind of synthesize all the little components of what you do in your whatever your area of expertise is, and if you were not to sell a single book, it would be an invaluable experience for you, just because it allows you to think about your work in a much more structured way. I've been selling in enterprise sales, lots of different deals, multi-million dollar deals and very complex sales and so forth. And it wasn't until I wrote the book that I understood in some real detail how I went about doing it. It was just a lot of it was much more intuitive and, just kind of ingrained. And what I found is it forced me to kind of articulate in a way that was much more absorbable for other people. And it also made it much easier for me to understand what it was I was doing. And so I think just writing a book, it certainly, by the way, it's also that you get tremendous sense of satisfaction just having it done. At least I do.
It's kind of fun to sign them too, isn't it?
Fun to sign them. It's fun that they're there. It immediately puts you in a very small group of people, because even as many books as there are out there, not that many people write a book.
And not that many are any good.
Right. And so and it doesn't have to be, mine's 200 pages. You could
And you're working on one now that's what, can be 60, maybe 80
100,
pages?
maybe 100, but it's not a lot of. It's not a. It's
And what, 4,000 words maybe?
no, yeah, something like that. It's 8,000, maybe 8,000, but still,
Yeah,
it's
really, yeah.
right. And the idea and the idea behind that is, I want something that someone can sit down, absorb, understand, and it's not an overwhelming task to absorb that idea or that practice. And so you don't want a book that's, if you have a book that's 700 pages, but it's 700 pages because a publisher needs it to be 700 or 400 pages or more in order for the spine to be big enough to be in Barnes and Noble and whatever. That's nonsense. What you want is a book that's
read too much. You know it all too well.
Right. You want 70 to 80 pages, 90 pages that, I can sit down. This is not overwhelming. I can get through this, absorb it. Right.
Or even more importantly, a lot of people don't even read the book. They look at the cover, they look at the back, they open to page 9.
Right.
They validate that this makes sense, and then they put it in the pile and go, yeah, Brendan wrote a great book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So to me, that's one of the things would be, I think if you're in that world where you've got an area of expertise, right, and you're trying to, then it's a calling card. Obviously, it's confirmation that you've sat down and worked on something and completed it. There's a certain
makes you a
amount of rigor.
thought leader,
right? All those sorts of things. It also generates content for you, so you can take those sections out and put them in social media if you want to do, or whatever you want, that sort of thing. So anyway, I think that's one. The other thing is, one of the fundamental things that I think is, and this is getting a little wonky, but if you're in sales, you need some sort of a system in place, and that allows you to be good at follow up and details and so forth. And the reason I say that is because I think the biggest reason people don't buy is because you stop following up with them. And it's,
you mean my system of,
yeah,
I haven't talked to him in like 6 months.
Yeah,
I should call him.
Yeah.
Isn't the right system?
Yeah. So even a customer relationship management system, and I mean, it can be a brain dead simple one. And some of them are free, or $10 or $20 a month.
Excel spreadsheet,
whatever.
But
whatever it is that is easy to use and has reminders, and flags, and can automate things, so you don't have to. So the letter that you type, you don't have to type the same letter 50 times. Some of this you can do in Gmail, but boy, anything that you have in the way of a system that gets you to do follow up, I think is key. The other thing I would say is two others. One is typically less is more. So if you can write an email, if you can write a letter, and you can be very crisp, you're way ahead of the game. I mean, long paragraphs, I think, are just they're deal killers. So can you speak in terms that are immediately clear and understandable and lack verbosity, right? That would be one. What's the other one? The other is, everybody wants to do things via text or email, and I have a belief that being in person, you want to talk to people in real time. Now, in life, if you can. And when I say that, this is obviously dependent upon where you are and what you sell or what you work on, but there's a hierarchy of quality of engagement. In person is better. If you can't be in person, then Zoom or video is, video calls are better. They're better than phone calls. Phone calls are better than email, and email is better than text. And so you can use all those modes, but know that the more you move from better to worse, so to speak, is the more you're introducing confusion, the unknown, misinterpretation, all that, and my old boss, my old sales boss years ago said, people will say things to you in email they would never have the stones to say to you in person. And it's so people will and
Yes.
they'll people communicate differently, more tersely, more carelessly, and maybe you do as well, or I do as well. But so I think that the more you can do person to person engagement, I think that's a lost art. I think that's critically important. If you can pick up the phone and call someone, that's better than emailing them if you can, especially in a sales situation. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I warned you about this up front. We are about to do the Bob Graham experience, but before that, I want to give you a chance to tell us how we can get in touch with you, who you like to serve ideally, put your book up there again and tell us how we can get your book and anything else that would be useful to you. So go ahead.
Oh, okay. So, well, thank you for that. I work with early stage startups typically, or companies that are having challenges or want to improve their sales process. And that can be coaching individual contributors, or that can be helping with sales process and doing a specific training class or something like that. And I can typically work with individuals or larger groups, and in a sales setting. And I typically work. I don't have a curriculum per se. What I do is I typically teach in conjunction with whatever your business is. And so that's who I work with. And a lot of early stage founders that have some funding and that are starting to get some traction. I'm particularly good at helping founders and the early stage members of the team become good at sales. And somebody in an early stage company has to own sales. And oftentimes they're not a professional salesperson because salespeople are expensive, and a lot of salespeople don't want to come into a nascent company because they don't see the trajectory. If you're just a professional salesperson, you want to come into a situation where there's already a trajectory in place, there's a proven product, and it's cookie cutter. It's boom. If I talk to this kind of person, I'm going to make a sale.
Sell commission.
There's nothing wrong with that. But they know that's their skill. I typically work with people when they're before that, when you have to get that trajectory, when you have to figure out what your critical messaging is, you have to figure out who the ideal customer is, all that sort of stuff. So some of what I do is sales, and a lot of it is kind of sales strategy and sales positioning and messaging and that sort of thing. That's what I'm particularly good at, and particularly in healthcare.
Okay.
So that's that. The book is called Salescraft. It's a whole bunch of short chapters on various aspects of the sales process. And so the idea behind it was I wanted to write something that was very digestible. You could sit down, read a chapter in 2 or 3 or 4 minutes. You get a concept, and then you can go back and look at it at different times, because a lot of sales is fundamentals. It's basic blocking and tackling, so to speak. It's understanding, the little tactical things that are good to do, whether it's follow up or managing a meeting or whatever. And it's mostly packaged in that way.
Okay. Right. And how can we get in touch with you?
It's Brendan at Kiinetics, KIINETICS.com. And that's my website as well. And I'm on LinkedIn. And so, yeah, if you've got
Twitter, right?
And Twitter. Yeah. It's less Twitter.
Okay.
Days, but yeah.
Okay. Used to be a big thing. All right. You ready for the Bob Graham experience, Brendan?
Yes, I am. Let's do it.
All right. 5 questions. Try to give me 1-sentence answers, if you will. First of all, the last thing that you read.
Oh, I just finished Hooked by Nir Adal. It's about product design and marketing.
Okay. Yep. Great book. Your most important inspiration.
Oh, that would be my dad. I mean, my dad is just he was just phenomenal. He died a few months ago, and I'm still still getting over that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take you there.
Right? No.
Next thing, your biggest daily challenge.
Oh, I am terrible with paperwork, and so I write things down, and as opposed to, because I use notebooks and so forth, and it's a disaster for me. So
Okay.
I do have a CRM. I use it aggressively and all that, but I do like the tactile thing. I'm sorry. I'm only supposed to have one sentence. Sorry.
No, you're okay. It's good. It's all
Well,
good.
the rest of that is it's quite clear to me that things are absorbed if they're written down, as opposed to if like a physical book, you absorb more of a physical book than you do a Kindle. And the same is true as when you write a note. If you can write a note, it embeds itself in your brain much more so than if you type something. And the science confirms that. Science confirms that.
Neuroscience says that you're using 2 neural pathways, and that's the key. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one. Skill you didn't know you had that you rely on now.
I'm much more of a coach and encouraging than I ever thought I would be. That was not a natural thing for me, but it's become a skill that I've become pretty good at in terms of just being able to be a cheerleader and for others, which that was not a skill I had developed really 5 or 6 or 7
I
years.
can attest to your skill. You do it with me a lot, and I appreciate it. And then a bonus question: one book you would recommend that everyone read? There seems to be an obvious choice here, Brendan. I'm shocked that you're not going that way, but you go.
I think I love Michael Pollan's book, The Omnivore's Dilemma. And it's about food, and it's about the food process. And all his books are often very good. I always end up being much smarter as a result of them.
Okay.
And so it's just a fascinating book. It's one of those books that I've absorbed. It's, so that would be one. Yeah.
Okay. And then one extra question, because I know you're a real movie buff.
Okay.
Give us a movie recommendation, because I know we used to do a podcast and you gave some great recommendations. What's the movie we should all be trying to find right now? It can be old or new.
The one that I watched this. There's so many, the one that I watched not that long ago that's on Netflix is really good. It's called The Hitman. And I can't remember the guy that's in it, but he was an extra. He was like a more minor character in the new Top Gun Maverick movie. But
was it Glenn Powell, right?
Is that it? Yeah,
I think that's right. Yeah, so he's everywhere.
Yeah, he is now, right? And it's really funny and it's clever. But the thing that's really meaningful about it is it's a message about how you can reinvent yourself. And you have the ability to you don't have to be the person you think you are. You can be somebody else. You can reinvent yourself. You can redefine who you are. And I think that that's one of the things that I think is such an important thing, a lesson for people to learn. And they deliver it in such a funny, clever way. It's really a good movie. I like it a lot.
Okay. Thank you for all that, Brendan. You've been a real great guest. You've told us a whole lot about sales. And folks, if you're having sales challenges, no lie, Brendan's the guy to talk to. He really is. He's helped me so much indirectly and directly. I don't think he realizes how many times he helps me when I actually don't fess up to him. But he is really great. He always will listen to you. He doesn't knee jerk. So if you've got sales issues, questions, problems, I encourage you to track down Brendan. Thanks again, Brendan.
Awfully nice.
Talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Bob.
That was the Bob Graham Experience. Want to be a guest and experience it for yourself? Visit thebobgrahamexperience.com to get on the list. And of course, please rate us and listen to other episodes wherever you had the Bob Graham Experience. Until next time.